What would mandate relief mean for local school districts? I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Newsmakers. With me this hour is Pennsylvania State Representative Seth Grove. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Talk to us a little bit about this package of bills. The governor has spoken about it, but what would mandate relief mean for local school districts in Pennsylvania?
It mostly means flexibility. It allows them to not have the state tell them what to do with the money sent to them that we approve and appropriate. It allows them to balance their budgets with more flexibility, and end result is hopefully no property tax increases.
So for these mandates, are they related to what happens in the classroom, or is it primarily things that happen outside of the classroom?
A little bit of both. There was one that was put in with the costing out study. Representative Tolman has the prime sponsor of the bill. It's in the accountability section of the school code, and it requires any new funding from the state requires expanded programs or new programs, which just systemically forces school districts to increase property taxes because they can't use the new money to balance their budgets. They have to use it for more programs. So
the piece of legislation that you've introduced is related to Act 1. So let's talk about Act 1 and how it relates to school districts. Since it was introduced, there have been exemptions in place. How do those exemptions work, and how does Act 1 work?
Okay. Act 1 was passed in the special session dealing with property taxes back in 2006. At that time, and it's still true today, that it's very tough to get any kind of property tax shifting, whether it's sales tax, income tax, because you increase cost for one area of the state and they don't get that money returned in the form of property tax relief. So they devised a plan to try to keep it local. Part of that is allowing school districts to go over to an EIT, which they still can do today, and many school districts haven't done that. The other aspect of it is capping property tax increases to an index. If you want to go over the index, you have two options. One, go to referendum and have your electorate vote on it. Or two, you can apply for 10 exemptions through the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and they'll approve them. Stuff like pensions, healthcare costs, act of God if a tornado comes through and blows off the roof of a school.
So have school districts actually applied and received these exemptions?
Yeah, many apply for the exemptions. Some just apply to them and don't actually use them, but just want them in place for the flexibility of having them. Others have used them. There have been very, very few school districts that actually went to a referendum to go over the index.
So what would your legislation do in terms of these exemptions?
It would get rid of all the exemptions and require school districts, if they want to go above the index, to go to vote a referendum.
For all instances, even the ones that you've mentioned where there's an act of God?
Yes. You know, as a state government, we have increased pension costs. Actually, we pay half of the school district's pensions. So we have all the state employees' pensions. We pay half of the public school employee pensions as well. We're not raising taxes to do that this year. There's no plan on raising taxes next year or the year after that as the pension increases continue to escalate. So what we're saying is apply that to every form of local government. It's time to live within our means and ensure there's fiscal responsibility back to the taxpayers. The days of just raising taxes to raise taxes needs to end.
So what does this mean in terms of what happens in the classrooms? Will the funding still be in place in light of some of the proposed cuts that have happened at the state level? What does that mean for what actually happens within the classroom in terms of funding?
Yeah. Well, hopefully with the flexibility we create through the entire mandate relief package, it gives school districts more options and more tools at their disposal to properly balance their budgets. Obviously, one of the $1 billion in cuts you hear about is actually federal stimulus money that's going away. Everybody knew it was going away. The federal government's not going to reappropriate it. And we actually increased the basic ed funding from last year to this year because in Governor Rendell's last two budgets, he actually decreased the state allocation to school districts. So we actually give them a bump in that. There's three specific line items that school districts didn't like to see cut. One was the state paying for half the school district's Social Security payments. So once again, we're picking up half their costs. Charter schools, allocation for reimbursements, and then the third one is the accountability block grant.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We've been talking with Pennsylvania State Representative Seth Grove. I'm Jill Horner.